Strange things happen, and stranger things will happen. The people of the kingdom were accustomed to the weird and unexplainable occurrences of life and nature. They would ponder them, frown at them, and whisper amongst themselves, but they were always certain to move on with a shrug of their shoulders. For days leading up to the ancestral choosing, the city had been packed with foreign guests, chiefs in heavy coral beads, princes draped in gold-threaded tapestries, and wealthy merchants from the far reaches of the Niger Delta, all vying for the hand of the queen and a seat beside her on the throne. But after the queen had stood frozen on her platform, speechless and staring at the strange young man who had snuck before her, empty-handed, it seemed the state of the kingdom was even more confusing than it had been before the event. 2 days had passed, and the atmosphere in the palace was heavy with an unsettled silence. The foreign entourages still lingered in the guest quarters, their laughter now replaced by hushed, indignant murmurs. In the grand hallways, the polished terracotta glowed under the afternoon sun, reflecting the nervous pacing of the elders who waited for a word that never came. Amara remembered the moment with startling clarity. As the crowd's roar had turned into a confused low hum, she had stepped closer to her queen. Zara hadn't moved. She had been a statue of carved wood, her gaze locked onto the boy in the white linen tunic. "My queen," Amara had whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. Zara hadn't looked at her. Her voice had been a ghost of itself when she finally spoke. "Who is he, Amara? What family is he from?" Amara had looked at the young man, his hands empty, his face clean but his spirit raw, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with Maro's dissipating clouds. "I do not know, Zara. He is no one known to the court." At last, the queen blinked, and the spell, or perhaps the lack of one, shattered. Her royal mask settled back into place, cold and unyielding. The smile that had graced her lips vanished into the ghost of a memory, as if it had been nothing more than a trick of the light. She turned to the elders, her voice regaining its iron edge. "I have seen the suitors. I have received their gifts. The choosing is over. I shall make my decision soon." She had spared Amara one last look before stepping off the platform, her silk gown rustling against the wood. In that briefest of moments, Amara had seen it. It wasn't the regal indifference she was used to, nor was it the fear she had shown toward Maro's magic. It was a terrifying, luminous vulnerability. Amara knew just then. She could tell by the way the light caught the moisture in Zara's eyes that the queen had been heartstruck. The sun hung low over Maro's compound, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to dance between the shrines. In the center of the courtyard stood a massive, ancient silk cotton tree. Its branches held dangling trinkets, charms of twisted iron, animal skulls, and small ceramic bells that chimed with the hollow metallic ring in the dry breeze. Carved deep into the rough gray bark of the trunk was an eerie, weeping face, its eyes wide and hollow, appearing to watch everything within the walls. Maro was pacing beneath the tree, his movements frantic and uneven. His gray hair was disheveled, and the heavy staff in his hand struck the earth with a dull thud at every turn. He seemed trapped in a cycle of his own thoughts, oblivious to the world outside his walls. Amara approached quietly, the bells on the tree shivering as she passed. When she was only a few paces away and he still hadn't looked up, she cleared her throat softly. Maro spun around. His face was a map of fury and profound disappointment, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I do not understand," he said, his voice a jagged rasp. He stopped his pacing and stood before her, the staff trembling slightly in his grip. He opened the palm of his other hand, holding it out as if offering her his very life. "I have given everything, my youth, my peace, my very blood to keep this kingdom from the rot of evil. I stood over the fresh earth of King Abidan's grave and swore to him, to my king, my friend, that I would never leave his daughter's side, that I would guide her, protect her, and rule with the strength the disease took from him in his final days." His eyes dropped to the low grasses beneath their feet, and his fingers slowly curled into a tight, white-knuckled fist, crushing the air he had just offered. "I am a fool," he whispered, the dejection in his voice heavier than his magic. "I thought the people's chairs and the history of my service would be enough. I thought Zara understood that I am the only pillar strong enough to hold up her ceiling." Amara felt a pang of pity, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of the square. She stepped closer. "The queen did understand, Master Maro, until the final moment. I saw it in her eyes. She was ready to accept the truth of your words and service. She knew you were the only choice." Maro's brow furrowed. "Then why the silence? Why the hesitation?" "It was the boy," Amara said firmly. "That stranger who walked into the square without a gift or a name. The moment he appeared, the queen changed. It wasn't just confusion, Maro. It was as if she had been struck by lightning while standing still. Her eyes, she looked at him and it was as if she forgot everything." Maro's gaze sharpened, his disappointment suddenly replaced by a cold, calculating suspicion. He looked at the carved face on the tree, then back at Amara. "What does this mean?" he hissed, his voice dropping an octave. "Who is this boy that can turn a queen's heart with a single look? Just a commoner? No, no commoner possesses such weight." Amara straightened her posture, the soft jingling of her waist beads the only sound in the sudden silence. She wasn't just the queen's companion, she was her shield, and her eyes now held the sharp, cold light of a huntress who had found a trail. "I did not spend the last 2 days idle, Master Maro. The boy has a name, Daffy. He is the son of an outcast woman from a river tribute village, the ones who fought against King Abidan before the surrender. His mother weaves linen and sells it like a beggar at the edge of the market. And the boy," she paused, her eyes narrowing, "he spends his days where no sane man goes. He forages in the dark forest, hunting and searching for rare roots to sell to young mages." Maro's scowl deepened, his lip curling in a sneer of pure disbelief. "A scavenger? An outcast from a bloodline of enemies?" He began to pace again, his mind working like a weaver at a loom, trying to pull these threads into a pattern that didn't end in his own humiliation. "It makes no sense. Why would Zara look at a boy who smells of mud and treason as if he were a god descended from the clouds?" Amara exhaled a long, heavy breath and shrugged. "I do not know what to think. There is no world where that boy has genuine intentions. But if he used magic to blind her, it is magic I do not recognize. Zara was wearing the protective charm you carved for her, Maro. The firestone sat right against her pulse. It should have fled." Maro stopped abruptly, turning to face her. His shadow, cast by the trinket-laden tree, looked like a jagged claw on the earth. Nodding slowly, he stepped closer until he could smell the scent of crushed camwood on her skin. "My charms are wards against the common rot, Amara. But they are parents of blood magic so ancient and so foul that they reach into the dark realm itself. If a witch is powerful enough, if she has sacrificed enough of her own humanity, she can weave a thread that bypasses most protective charms. It doesn't break the charm, it simply does not exist to it." Amara's face paled slightly. She knew the law. But any witch with that kind of power would be a monster to behold. To reach that far into the dark, the price is written on the flesh. Her skin would be shriveled and scarred like burnt bark. Her veins would pulse with black blood. She looked toward the distant hazy line of the horizon. "And there is only one place where a creature like that could hide from the judgment of the ancestors." "The dark forest," Maro whispered, the words hanging in the air like a curse. He gripped his staff until his knuckles turned ashen. The pieces were falling into place. A boy who forages in the forbidden woods, a queen whose protections failed, and an attraction that defied all reason. It is a trap. The boy is the lure, and the witch is the hook. He looked at Amara, his voice sharp with a new frantic urgency. "Where is he now? I must see him. I must peel back whatever veil he has cast." Amara looked toward the direction of the high stone walls of the palace, her expression grim. "The queen has already made her move, Maro. She summoned him this morning. He is in the royal palace right now, alone with her."